This is the before. This is the after. Yeah. Hi, this is Seamless, and today I'm going to talk about a particular kind of Neuro type bass that I made in this remix that I'm making for the Skrillex and Damian Marley remix competition on Beatport. That's right. You probably heard this already. I think I've posted a video of what it used to sound like when I was still making the structure and all that. Anyway, I'm going to play a bit of it, and then I'll start talking about how to make it. The bases, that is. The bases. We'll cover the bases. Anyway, it might be loud. Just warning you.
Turn up the bass. How we ablaze the fire, make it on.
All right. That was a pretty good chunk. That's one of my favorite moments. Now, I'm going to be talking about this bass in particular. That's the one. If you want to learn how this one was made, check out my track Menagerie. I use this a lot. This is vocoder based stuff, and how to bass 8. I cover it, and also if you want to pick up the FLP file of Menagerie, you can do that. And there's links into how to do that on the video. I'm thinking when the remix competition is over, I'm actually gonna put up this FLP as well, but it's going to be for free. Just saying. I'm sure you guys will enjoy that. Anyway, so let's talk about what's going on. So, in plenty of my other videos, I talk about the Harmor resampling process. This is what this is using. So, you're familiar with that process, and you know that we take a sound. In this case, I have a citrus channel. It's your basic Reese bass sound. You put it in an effects insert, and you record it into an Unison. Get rid of that. And then you drag the file into a Harmor in the image section, and that resynthesizes the audio into the additive engine of Harmor. And you are able to apply Harmor's internal synthesis magic and effects to the sound, which facilitates the resampling process. When you again render that out into a Edison in their own track, I put it in different tracks, and then put it in another one, do lather, rinse, and repeat until it sounds the way you want the sound. So in this case, I go from the sound to the sound. Yeah. So let's talk about specifics. I'm just going to make a pattern and do it. If I can find it. There it is. That sounds good. It's already one. Whatever. All right, so I hit record. You notice that it's not actually recording right now. It's because I have on play selected. This means that it won't go anywhere until I hit the play button. And since I have a pattern selected, that means it's going to loop. And when it loops, when you have on play selected, it creates loop points in the form of song jump markers in Edison, like so. So what this means is that if I double click on the marker, it'll select everything after it. And then I could just delete that. And then I have an audio file that is the length of the selection that I played. So how do you drag files into it? This button here is the button that enables you to then click and drag it, and then you can just drop it onto a channel like so. You see how it's being highlighted? It's boom, now it's in there. Alternatively, if you open up the Harmor and you drag it and you drop it on anything that's not here or here, it'll just show up here. That's what we want. Now, the way that I normally do this is I have the pattern that I'm working with, and then I make a new pattern with C5 for the length of the file that I'm using. And then I put it in however many harmonics I'm using to make the sound. And then I just enable and disable the ones that I'm using. So if I hit play, that'll be the one that comes out of the mixer insert that has Edison in it. So, all right, what am I doing in this first Harmor? This one is pretty basic. I'm not going to talk about this yet. First, I'm going to talk about how I made the citrus patch, because people will ask me that. This is among the more simpler things you can do with saw waves and a sine wave. I do that just for base reinforcement, sine sub. You know what I mean? So this is all. What this is primarily one saw normal, and then another saw, and it's detuned slightly. Now, when you detune it by a ratio, like I'm doing right now, that means that that kind of oscillating you're hearing, the warble, will increase in speed as you increase in pitch. If you were to just create a hertz offset, that means that each one is only a couple of hertz different. It would be a different effect. But I want to have that kind of warbly speed effect. Not that I really be present when the resampling is done, but just in general, I like it to be there. All right, so then I route those all into a filter, which you do by moving these in, like you're using operator 1 to modulate a filter, but it's just being routed into the filter. Right, so you do that for all three of them. And then in this filter, I set it to LP3. I set it to LP3 because LP3 has a stands for low pass. It has a drive knob which will distort it a little bit, and then I use that with the wave shaper to also distort it further. So that's how I'm getting the basic distortion out of Citrus without like using a distortion plugin, which you could do. I mean, people have lots of those. So the basic point is that you want to have the saw waves doing the detuning thing, and then I mean I put that sine wave in there, but really, like, if you don't, that's not even the pattern. If that difference isn't something you care about, then whatever, doesn't really matter. Yeah, so that's what that pattern is. That's what that patch is. It's very simple stuff. I think, okay, so what am I doing in the first Harmor? I'm distorting it further. More distortion. I have it set to cube. It's really just whatever. Do it. All of this is just do it to taste. I'm just showing you what I did specifically to get exactly the sound that I have here for a starting point for you guys. Also, How to Base 7 covered a lot of how this works too. Okay, so I put up the Unison up a little bit, just classic standard tiny bit of pitch. I also formatted it up just to have a little bit of extra twinge. This is what it sounds like without it. It makes it a little fuller on the high end, just the tiniest bit. I also have the sharpness turned down a little bit, so this is where it is normally. Sharpness only has an effect when you have pitch-based effects enabled, like the Prism or the Unison. Without those two active, the sharpness doesn't really have much effect. It has some effect. But it's not as pronounced. Yeah, so that's good for this. Not much else. So I am going to record it into the Edison that I have on the track for the Harmor. Ta-da. Double-click the marker, delete it. File length is appropriate. Drag and drop here. Now, I do something interesting with this Harmor. Harmor has an A and a B part, so you could have two different parts running. And in here, I decided to have two different parts going in here. So that means I also have to drag it into A, because B is where I was focused previously. So if I drag and drop, it dropped into B, but it didn't drop into A. So I'm dropping it into A again, like so. Like so. So why did I do that? It's because now that I have two, I could stack different effects. I could have two different Unisons going, two different like prisms. You can see the difference in the effects already. And on one of these, I also have a phaser engaged, and I can switch between intensity of which one I use, or even disable them entirely. And that means that, like, on the fly, I can have dynamic control over how to sample sounds, provided I enable the thing I'm using. So yeah, That's just a neat technique you can use to really, really, really process the sound if you want to. All right. So let's record this one now to drop it into the third one. What am I doing here about? Okay, so the whole 2-part thing, it's basically the same effects as I was using in the first one. See, actually, did I do Formant Changes? I see that I had the Formant knob engaged. However, I want to check that I did. No, I didn't. Okay, so you can make it do different things by going into the envelope section for the Formant thing and do your own mutation type, so that when the knob moves, it moves the formants differently than if it were just flat. I don't think I did any of that, so that's okay. Same thing with the prism thing. You can have its own little line editor for what frequencies go where when you turn a knob how, and it's very cool. But I don't think I did any of that with this. Okay, so mostly just more of the same effects, just more of it, and then controlled to make it so that it didn't get too crazy, or if I wanted to make it too crazy. Now, a common thing that happens when you use Harmor like this is that the unisons will create phase cancellation in the bass frequencies. There's 2 ways to avoid that. I used one of them, which was to turn the sharpness down. And when you do that, you lose some of the phase information of the original sample, and that makes it easier for the unison to not freak out. The other way is to just enable the limiter in the effects section, the compressor, and that'll you can just force up the bass, and it'll keep the bass even the whole time, regardless of what the phase is doing. So, fun information. So you can see how, well, not only does it just get higher, but you can see how it starts off bassy, and then it kind of drops off. And then watch how that changes when I go into the third one, because I'm pretty sure I used the limiter on this one. Oh yeah, big time. I also tend to think it cuts out the mids a little bit, so I like to increase the mids. All right. And now we have the sound as I have used it. Now, again, I'm going to check to make sure I didn't do anything silly. Nope. And actually, if you click on this, if you go to the main envelope thing, and this first one is just all the envelopes, and it'll show you, well, these are all the parameters. These are all the things that you can have envelopes and LFOs for. And one of them is pitch, obviously. And I set an LFO because I wanted to see what would happen if I did manual frequency modulation, which is to apply a LFO to a pitch and then oscillate it pretty quickly, as opposed to doing it in a synth. Also, if you're curious as to how to do that versus just doing the normal way, it's step editing versus not step editing. So step editing lets you do the draw, and that's fine for some applications. And then not step editing means you have to do point by point. And do everything like that. So like what does this sound like? Sounds a little weird. You can see why I didn't really use that, but that's an interesting thing to consider, because I have gotten decent results with that in the past, but I haven't had to try that because I just use FM synthesis for normal things. So I'm just showing you that because that's something you might not have considered before. Anywho, now that we have this final sample, I'm going to record it. And I'm going to talk about why there's a stereo effect. What is that? Well, if you go into the distortion, it has this asymmetry setting. You know, this is what it sounds like normally. And it creates a pretty nice stereo effect if you're using distorted sounds. So the reason why I have it just default like that is because in the bass channel, I set the stereo separation to 0. And then when I wanted to have a fill with some stereo effects, I just turned the stereo separation back to the middle position of the channel. I'll show you how to do that in a second. So I'm gonna go somewhere in the song and just drop the sample. Derp. All right. So channel 29 is where I keep this bass. I have a filter. Now I actually have two filters going on here. So I'm just gonna make a new automation clip, which takes 10 years because I have 100 of them going on right now. And then also the stereo separation. There's gonna be a lot of audio syncing problems, but that's okay. I believe I have what I need to do. So yeah, also there's this EQ. Just this is also something you have to do to taste, kind of thing. You can do the EQ built into the sample if you wanted to in Harmor. I'll show you where that is. If you'd ever know and see this EQ here, if you right click on it, you get your line editor. Then you can if you turn on step editing, you can, and there you go, you get your EQ, and you can have fun with that. I tend to do all my EQ post, so I never really mess with that. It's because if I forget that I did, and then I copy the Harmor, and then I try to resample through that, and then the EQs there, it just gets bad. But that's my fault, really. So I'm going to put this to 50. That's 52 or something, right? Yeah. Copy. Actually, I think I might have been smart about this. Nope, no, I haven't. So, and that's okay. Don't really care. I'm not putting it 50. 50 is the default position, which means that right now it sounds like how it would sound as the sample sounds by itself, like so. And 0, which is at the 100 position, means no stereo separation. And so I could do things like open it up and then close it again and open it up and really open it. Yeah, so you can have cool effects like that. Now, this filter that I'm about to do is where the magic happens. And I say magic because I've been trying to make the sound for years. Basically, this is why I started making music. It's because I wanted to figure out how to make this sound. I heard a Noisia song in 2005 and it blew my mind apart. Now, when I figured out the Harmor resampling thing, I was like, oh no, I discovered it. It's amazing. And my whole world was made, but I had no real control over how the sample works. And lots of people have told me that they had that problem too. And that's normal. But now we have control. Because I had been trying to do the filtering and the modulation before the resampling, and then it would all just get screwed up by the resampling. But I didn't think that if I just put a filter after the fact, it would sound like that. I didn't think it would for some reason, but it totally does. Just making a random envelope right now. Dirt. I missed. Yeah. And by the way, you see how fast I did that? That's not even because I'm doing anything. I just did it randomly. And then I'm going to listen to it, and I'll be like, oh, that's weird. And I move stuff around, and that's all there is to it. It's not that hard. So I definitely got it right with this beginning part. Now this is another thing with the resampling thing is that sometimes the whole sample doesn't sound good. You may have noticed in the actual track that there's lots of cuts going on. In where is it?
We must up the place, turn up the bass.
Yeah, look at how many samples are going on right now. This is part of the sample, but it's just moved around in the sample. And so is this one. They're all cut up and interweaved and put in between because very rarely does it just sound good with the whole sample by itself. Sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. Most of the time it doesn't. So for this one, I would take like just this part. Maybe a little bit of this. And that sounds kind of good. Like I'd be fine with that. So let's talk about this filter I'm using. Now, you could totally just put a basic low pass and it would get that kind of sound. But I also have a band pass going on in parallel. The low pass and the band pass are happening individually. So if I were to turn on the low pass, you'd also just have the band pass by itself. That's just to add an extra bit of tone to the sound. I didn't really know what I was doing when I did it, but it kind of sounded good because I did it, so I kept it. Because really, all I do is just experiment. Because rarely do I have an idea of what I'm doing when I do things until I do them, and then I have an idea. And then when I get the idea, I tell you so that you can have the idea and you can learn and go on to do amazing things on your own. Because now you know how to do things you want to do. So where's the original sample? Doot. So there you go. I hope that was helpful. I think I covered everything I need to do for that have worked. So yeah, as I mentioned before, this is the Skrillex Damian Marley Bun Dem remix that I'm doing. It's about done. I'm still working on it. If you follow me on my Facebook, you would have seen the version I'm using right now as a secret link on SoundCloud. And that's so that you can listen to it and comment on it. And hopefully, like, I'll find things that I need to fix. Because the submission at this time is 4 days from now. I'm hopefully not gonna wait till the very last minute. I'm gonna submit it when I'm comfortable with the song, which should be any day now. And but I want it to be good. I want it to be representative. It's actually extremely fortuitous that I have accumulated all this knowledge now, when like this is a very opportune time for me to be using all this stuff that I've been trying to figure out for 8 years. 8 years. Anyway, so yeah, thanks for watching. Till next time.